Evil and corrupt cops are everywhere, but what happens when they're actually caught? Today, we bring you a case that has been headlined by Vanity Fair as a case so cold, it turned blue. Picture this. It's the mid-1980s, and DNA testing was just about as foreign as the internet. In Los Angeles, the homicide rate is skyrocketing as the crack cocaine epidemic opened the floodgates on violence. The homicide detectives of the LAPD were flooded with cases, some working on several at once. For the detective Sherry Rasmussen's case, this was just another folder in the stack, the second dead body that day, and one out of 831 other homicide cases in 1986 alone. On February 24th that year, Sherry called in sick to work due to a back injury. Her husband kissed her goodbye and went on his way to work, but little did he know, this would be the last time he would see her alive. The couple lived in a 3-story townhouse in a gated community on Balboa Boulevard in LA. Their dining room, kitchen, and bedrooms were all located in the upper levels with a narrow staircase that led down to a carpeted living room. John called home several times throughout the day, but nobody answered the phone. He had little concern, however, as it was possible she decided to head into work after all. However, when he arrived home and opened the front door, shivers ran down his spine. As he stepped through the door, there laid Sherry, lifeless, on the floor, in front of the fireplace. Her face was severely beaten and bloody, although her life was cut short by 3 gunshot wounds, one to her spine, one to her lung, and one to her heart. Next to her lay a blanket that was suspected to be used to silence the gunshots, as there were 3 bullet holes straight through it. From this, the police were able to determine that it was a .38 caliber pistol that ended the young life of Sherry Rasmussen. A bloody fingerprint right near the burglar alarm, only inches from the panic button, marked the final attempt by Sherry to save her life. After the killer had their way with Sherry, they ransacked the house, weirdly leaving everything valuable behind, except the BMW that was bought by Sherry's husband as an engagement gift years before. Sherry definitely didn't go down easy, with defensive wounds all over her body. There was also a shattered porcelain vase that was broken over her head, possibly an attempt made by the killer to stun her. It was noticed by detectives that Sherry may have been winning the fight when the killer bit her arm to free themselves and regain control of the situation. The lead detectives arrived on scene to try to piece together how this happened. His belief was that this was a textbook burglary gone wrong. 2 suspects entered through the unlocked door. One took the ground floor, the second took the upstairs. But it was the second-floor burglar who was met by a shocked Sherry. When the first-floor burglar heard the gunshots, they fled without taking anything to avoid incriminating themselves further. The same night, at 2 a.m., an investigator from the coroner's office arrived to examine the scene, his second homicide of the night. He looked over all the usual identifying aspects, such as fingerprints, hair, blood, and fibers, but all the results came back empty. The killer was smart enough to wear gloves. However, they took samples and swabs from the bite mark left on Sherry's arm and sealed it in an envelope for evidence. Besides the bite mark and a tale of a robbery gone wrong, detectives had 2 contradicting eyewitness accounts to go off of. At about 9:45 a.m., a neighbor noticed the garage door open and the car missing. However, a cleaning lady from a neighboring house reported that at 12:30, she heard arguing coming from the home, but ruled it to be a domestic dispute. She said she heard a sudden crash from within the house, and later seeing the BMW drive off. Could this mean that the first burglar drove away after the shooting, left the second one behind to clean up the mess, and later returned to collect them? This was an extremely interesting and important piece of information that was overlooked by detectives. This could have very well indicated to the police who the killer was, changing the entire narrative. The backstory for this information goes a little like this. When John was studying mechanical engineering at UCLA, he lived in a dorm with hundreds of other students, but apparently he only took a true liking to one, a political science major and aspiring police officer named Stephanie Lazarus. John detected their relationship to be no more than just kissing and fooling around, but Stephanie was a little more invested. Well, not a little, it was an obsession. She loved John so much she wanted to be with him. Finally, the two had intercourse for the first time after graduation in 1983. By this time, John had entered his engineering job and Stephanie had joined the force with the LAPD. They slept together on and off until around 1984 when John met Sherry and forgot completely about Stephanie. The couple fell madly in love and got married in December of 1985. Meanwhile, Stephanie was still hung up on her college crush. She wrote to John's mother in the summer of that year, confessing her continued love for John and her wishing that things hadn't ended the way they did. In her last attempt to steal John away before his marriage, she arrived at his front door with tears in her eyes, claiming that she was suffering from a deep depression. Sadly, John gave in to the temptation and slept with Stephanie one last time. Even before this, Stephanie would show up unannounced with made-up reasons as to why she had come over. Sherry found it difficult to talk to John about these situations, as she would ask him about it and Stephanie would say, "We're just friends." From then on, she would pour her heart out to her father Nels. She told him everything she could about Stephanie, how she had an eerie feeling about her and John's relationship, and how Stephanie showed up in uniform once when she wasn't supposed to be home. She wondered if this was really a regular occurrence. Sherry goes to work, Stephanie drops by. Sherry soon ruled it out, however, to be a one-time thing, and she trusted John. With it only being a few weeks out before the wedding, she felt she had to. But Sherry's final straw was when Stephanie showed up to Glendale Medical Center where Sherry worked as a head nurse to tell her that things were not over between her and John, leaving her with a threat that if I can't have him, nobody can. The day after Sherry's murder, her parents Nell and Loretta Rasmussen landed in LA and sought out the lead detectives for information on what happened to her daughter. The detective ruled out John as a suspect, as he had a solid alibi being at work that day. Nels filled the detective in on the background of the love triangle between John, Sherry, and Stephanie. He didn't know the name at the time, but he did know that she was an LAPD officer. To a grieving father, she was the prime suspect. But to a seasoned homicide detective, this was a wild accusation, who was still stuck on his burglar story. However, he did make a note of there being another woman involved. According to John, no one followed up on his relationship with Stephanie. 6 weeks later, the detective doubled down on his double burglary gone wrong theory, when 2 Hispanic men had robbed a condo similar to John and Sherry's. This happened just a mile up the road. The woman came home and opened the front door to a man standing in the hallway stuffing a stereo into a bag. But as he saw her, he ran off as she pulled up further in the driveway. Then, a second man ran downstairs possessing a .38 caliber gun, the same gun that was used to kill Sherry. Incidentally, it was also the preferred backup for most LAPD officers. Months went by in LA, and the gang wars continued rising. The city had moved away from Sherry's case, as it had essentially gone cold. But Nels and Loretta were persistent with their Stephanie story. They made phone calls to the station almost every day, but got shut down by detectives with comments such as, "You're watching too much TV." But Nels knew his daughter. She was smart, kind, athletic, and a 6-foot-tall woman. There was no way she fell victim to a robbery gone wrong. He insisted that whoever came there to kill her, because a startled thief surely wouldn't take the time to muffle their gunshots with a quilted blanket. Would they? This led Nels to continue fighting for his daughter, and as DNA testing started to change the world of modern policing through the late 1980s and early 90s, Nels even offered to pay to have any samples taken from the crime scene to be tested. But there was nothing that the LAPD could do without a suspect. In the meantime, Stephanie worked her way up through the ranks in the office. She even spent some time working in internal affairs before eventually making detective. She had a thriving, unblemished career, and even got married to a fellow officer in 1996. Fast forward 10 years, and Stephanie is now leading the department's art thief details, a position that came with a great level of prestige. She had never been involved in any misuse of force cases, or had been accused of any misconduct. Well, outside of Nell's wild accusations. The name, face, and case of Sherry Rasmussen was slowly forgotten until 2004. Compared to the late 80s and early 90s, the amount of crime being committed had cooled off significantly in the early 2000s. With this, detectives started to reopen old cases, especially the ones that could now be solved thanks to DNA. Finally, Jennifer Francis, a criminalist at LAPD, opened Sherry's case to take another look. Unfortunately, most of the evidence was missing. Another detective collected it in 1993 and nobody ever saw it again. However, from the evidence she could test, Jennifer determined that the killer was female. After rereading the file, she noticed notes left about a third-party woman who had been harassing Sherry before she died. Jennifer brought this information to a leading detective. That's when he informed her that it was a fellow LAPD officer and John's ex-girlfriend. He insisted to her that it was a robbery gone wrong and that Stephanie had nothing to do with it. End of story. And just like that, the evidence went back on file and nobody touched the case again for another 5 years. In 2009, 2 detectives reopened the case and started to re-examine notes and how the DNA testing poked holes in the original detective's double burglar theory. As statistically speaking, more robbery homicides were confirmed by men, they simply couldn't just ignore the DNA test results pointing towards a female. So like Jennifer did 5 years previously, They went back over the file and all 23-year-old evidence with a fine-tooth comb, looking for something to point them in the right direction of a female being involved. They believed this was a murder made to look like a robbery based on several inconsistencies. For one, robberies don't occur late at night, or at least when it's dark out. Sherry was killed in the early afternoon. Secondly, her jewelry box sat in plain view, open yet nothing was taken. Finally, there was no sign of forced entry, meaning Sherry might have known the killer, and the clothing she was found in indicated that maybe she was expecting company. The officers narrowed down their suspect pool to 5 women that they could connect to the case, including Stephanie. They labeled them with numbers 1 through 5, with 1 being the most likely killer and 5 being the least likely. It wasn't long before they quickly eliminated 4 women, leaving them with number 5, Stephanie Lazarus. The detectives knew that they had to keep the suspect on the down low with her new level of prestige. This kind of information would make it to her extremely quickly. The detectives instead came up with a reason as to why they were looking into her, such as her .38 caliber Smith & Wesson being reported stolen 13 days after the murder took place. However, they knew that the gun was most likely long gone, but they kept digging to create a solid story with concrete evidence. After looking into where she was on the 24th of February 1986, Stephanie had the day off. Coincidence? An officer would also know how to stage this murder to look like a robbery gone wrong. So when the overworked senior detective came in to investigate, it would throw him off completely. This put certainty into the minds of the detectives, and Stephanie now became their target. Following this, the detectives began to tail Stephanie, until one day, she discarded a used coffee cup that they could take a DNA swab from. They then used that swab and cross-matched it with the bite mark left on Stephanie's arm, and it was a perfect match. 23 years later, and they had the killer. They had the evidence, and now the proof. The last step would be a confession. They knew this was going to be the hardest part, so a plan was put into place to make it happen.
What this is I didn't want to bring this up in your squadron. I don't know who people are listening.
That's true.
We've been assigned a case that we've been looking at.
Okay.
It's a new case, and reviewing the case, there's some notes to see as far as your name being mentioned.
Okay.
Do you know John Rutten?
John Bruton. John Rutten?
Rutten.
Oh yeah, I went to school with him.
You did?
Yeah.
How long did you know him?
Gosh, I went to school in, let's see, went to UCLA in 1978 I started, and met him at school at the dorms.
Mm-hmm. Were you guys friends, close friends?
Yeah, we're very close friends. I mean, what's this all about?
Well, it's a case we're working on, and it involves John, and in there's notes and stuff that he knew you and stuff.
Oh yeah, I mean, we were good friends.
You guys lived in the same dorm?
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah, Dykstra.
Okay. Were you guys just friends or anything else, or?
Yeah, we were good friends.
Yeah. Was there ever any relationship or anything that developed between you guys?
Yeah, I mean, we dated, I mean, what's this all about?
Well, it's relating to his wife.
Okay.
Okay. Did you know her?
Not really. I mean, I knew that he got married years ago.
Uh-huh. Did you ever meet her?
God, I don't know.
Do you know who she was or anything?
Well, let me think. God, it's been a long time ago.
Here, you can see that Stephanie has been lured in thinking she's helping them with a case, but she starts to become a little more suspicious when they start to bring up her college love, John. But once Sherry's name starts to get thrown around, things start to get heated.
I may have met her.
Let me ask you, you said you dated John. How long did you guys date?
I mean, are you guys, is this something, I mean, you said I was going to interview somebody about art. I don't understand why you're talking about some guy I dated a million years ago.
Well, do you know what happened to his wife?
Yeah, I know she got killed.
And how did you first learn about that?
Someone could have called me. I could have heard it at work. I think at one point there may have been a flyer or something.
Were you on the job back then when that happened?
Yeah, I think so. And he may have lived in the dorms. I don't remember if that's how I met him. I may have talked to him. I mean, I don't remember how I heard. I mean, I don't even remember what year it was.
You said you thought his wife was a nurse. Do you have any idea where she was working at the time, or did he ever mention that to you? Was it a hospital or a doctor's office?
I'm sure he must have mentioned it. Now that you're bringing that up, I think she worked at a hospital somewhere. And yeah, I may have met her at a hospital. I may have talked to her once or twice.
At a hospital?
Or more.
Was it everything okay between you guys? I mean, there was never anything uncomfortable or anything between you and her?
I don't know. I mean, it's been so many years. I mean, uncomfortable. I mean, I can't even remember if we had a conversation. I mean, we may have. I may have. Geez, how many years ago was that? I don't even know what year she, got killed.
Where was his apartment?
On Roscoe.
Okay.
Notice how she can't remember when Sherry was killed, but is quick to remember where John used to live.
You're not sure where he moved to after he got married?
No idea. I mean,
Never went over to visit him or
I don't think.
meet
I
his
mean,
wife
I don't
or-
think so. I don't know. I don't think I did. Somewhere in the valley. I mean, he may have said I lived over such and such, but I couldn't tell you specifically where.
But you don't remember specifically ever going over to visit him or visit them at wherever he moved when he left Roscoe?
I honestly, I don't know. I don't think so, but
Okay.
I don't know.
So if you did go over there, just be like a quick thing, like you're saying, drop something off, or
Maybe.
But you don't remember as far as like going there to have dinner?
Well, if you guys know something, I can't. I don't know. I don't think so.
After John's wife died, and you said you may have been talking to him. Did your relationship start up again?
I would say no.
After a quick trip down memory lane, the detectives are quick to redirect Stephanie back to Sherry and the surprise visit she paid to her at the hospital where she was head nurse of.
You know what the circumstances were regarding her death?
Geez, let me think back. I don't know if it was, if it was a burglary or something. It's been so many years. I can faintly think that I may have saw a flyer. If somebody had called me, I may not have known what her last name was.
You remember the first name?
Shelley, Sherry, I don't know, something maybe, like I said, it's been so many years, and
From all the years, as far as you can remember, do you remember ever talking to her? Just
I may have talked to her.
you mentioned a hospital. Maybe you may have talked to her at a hospital.
I'm thinking back now. You guys are bringing up all these whole memories. He would date other people. I would date other people, and I think at one point, he may have been dating her, or I don't know. Maybe he was married. I don't even remember. And I'm like, what? Why are you calling me if you're either dating her or living with her or married to her? Because I honestly don't remember the time frame. And I'm like, come on, knock it off. And now I'm thinking I may have gone to her and say, hey, you know what? Is he dating you? He's bothering me. And so I'm thinking that we had a conversation about that. One or two, maybe.
Like at her work or at their house or.
No, I'm thinking that he obviously must have told me where she worked. I'm thinking it was a hospital somewhere in L.A. And I could have been, again, what year was that? Where was I working? When did you say they got married?
In 85 or 86 or something like that. We just kind of picked this up. We don't know a lot about it.
I could have been working in Hollywood, it sounds like, if that's where I was working, and just said, hey, you know what? If he's dating you, he keeps calling me, why don't you tell him to knock it off or whatever? And because I probably would have told him to knock it off.
Now, for all we know, she could be telling the truth here. But Nels, Sherry's father, recalled the situation to be quite hostile by Stephanie. Let's see how much longer she can keep playing dumb.
That you talked to his wife, said, hey, or, I don't know if it was, I guess it wasn't his wife at that time, girlfriend or whatever. And
yeah, I don't know if it was his wife or his girl. Quite honestly, I don't even remember.
When you said, like, hey, he's calling me, he needs to knock it off or what have you, was that civil?
I don't think there was anything, can't even remember. And what isn't like, we went out to lunch or anything.
Right, but there was no, like, arguments or fights
I don't think
it didn't
so.
get heated or anything like
Not
that?
that I recall, no. I would think that would stand out, I would think. Now, again, that's not standing out in my mind.
So you didn't have any problems with her then?
No.
You didn't have any issues?
seems like you didn't have any issue. Did she have an issue with you as far as because now you're telling her, hey, tell him to stop calling. Now she's like, hey, you figure she'd be threatened by you. Maybe you didn't take it as serious, but maybe did she? Maybe she was bugged.
You mean like was she throwing things at me or something, or?
Well, no, just as far as you're trying to explain, like, hey, have him stop calling me. Stop playing games.
I tell you. If the conversation, I couldn't even tell you how long the conversation, if you said, did it last a half an hour, did it last 3 minutes, did it last 20 minutes, I can't even remember. It's been so long ago.
You just remember talking to her, telling her
Yeah, and that's
that
why you said how many times you talked to her. I don't know how many times I talked to her.
For someone so high up on the LAPD, you would think that they would know to keep their story straight, but these detectives continue to poke holes throughout her story over and over.
I mean, like I said, I'm faintly remember either between him or the flyer that there was some kind of a burglary.
The detectives ever reach out to you?
No, no one's ever talked to me. I don't think anybody ever talked to me about him. I'm thinking that I did talk to a detective. You know, I'm thinking that I did speak to somebody.
Oh, really?
I couldn't tell you who it was.
Because it doesn't
It was
say
probably
anything.
on the phone.
Okay.
Would it have been somebody in regards to this, or just...
Yeah.
Uh-huh.
Yeah. I don't even know if you said a name if I would remember it.
She's really trying to play it smooth, but these detectives aren't giving up, using tactics such as rephrasing the same question but in a different way to see if the answer changes.
I don't think I've ever gone there. That's what I'm saying. I don't want to say, no, I've never gone there, and then you say, oh, I was at a party. Because I don't, you know, I don't think so. We've got these friends, we have parties, my house, their house. I just don't think John ever came to, again, you know, at one point, because we knew people from school together. I knew different people, he knew different people. I knew people that he knew from his work, you know, that lived in the valley.
I mean, you're not sure if you ever been to the house, because...
But it's safe to say that would have been the only time, like for something social.
Yeah, if I went there for something social, yeah.
Because I know you went to talk to her at the hospital regarding this issue with John, to, you know, kind of like, hey, you know, what's going to happen here with this thing. But would this ever have followed up to her house, when you went to talk to her to say, hey, you know what?
I don't even know that I knew where they lived. If I knew where they lived and I'd been there, if it was for something social, you know, he lived on Roscoe. Did I ever see her there? I don't know. I may have met her there.
But you didn't have any issues with her, right?
No, I mean, you know, obviously, if he was dating me and dating her, I probably said, hey, pick or something, you know. I can't say that we ever screamed or, yeah, you know, it's, I mean, he was a pretty mellow guy. I think I was pretty mellow. I don't think we had some big, huge blow up to say, you know, why we stopped dating, or I was probably going out with other guys and he was probably going out with other girls.
Right.
You know, I don't know.
I mean, would you remember if she snapped on you and just like, hey man, it's my man, you know, you leave him alone, you know, blah blah blah, that kind of stuff?
And maybe that happened. It's been so long ago. I mean,
because the times I've seen you around at our office,
I'm crazy.
you know, but you're always
You know.
kind of like real, I mean, you seem kind of bubbly.
Oh, you know,
But-
people think I'm really hyper. I can get upset, you know, and then I forget 5 seconds later. You know how guys razz you and you go, you know.
Notice how she doesn't rule out that she was there, but tries to dodge the question of when this took place. Was this as innocent as a friendly courtesy, or was it the beginning of something much deeper?
Well, one of the concerns I had is looking at some of the notes is some of Sherry's friends said that you and her were having a problem because of the John situation.
Well, number one, I don't know who her friends are.
Yeah.
I don't know even who these friends are. A problem. Like I said, if I spoke to her, I mean, I'll go on as far as a limb, and I don't even want to say I spoke to her 5 times, because that's probably not even true. I can't even remember.
Interesting that Sherry felt threatened enough to talk about her friends and their run-in at work.
Do you ever have any problems with your cars? Just anything in general, you know, car wrecks, anything stolen?
Yeah. No, my car's never been stolen. Oh, no, crash. My Tercel was hit and run. Again, I got pictures of the hit and runs. Yeah, I don't think any of my cars had ever been stolen. No. No, my car has been broken into several times.
Oh, really? Did you ever lose anything, or?
Yeah. Now that you mention it, I had a gun that was stolen.
Mm-hmm.
I had other stuff that was stolen.
Not your duty gun, was it?
No.
Oh, that's good. Was it ever recovered?
I don't know. No, I don't think so.
As stated earlier, the murder weapon was a .38 caliber Smith & Wesson, the exact same one stolen from Stephanie's car suspiciously close to where the murder took place. But hey, everyone's innocent until proven guilty, right?
Like I said, as we were looking at the case, and you know, we had read the notes as far as from Sherry's friend saying you guys had problems or words, and they got heated. You know, and the reason we're asking you is they had mentioned that an incident at her work had occurred, and they've also told us that an incident at her house occurred.
You know what?
And this is at her house during the period of time that they're married.
That's just not sounding familiar at all. I mean, you know what? If someone says that I was at her house and I had an incident with her, you know, was John there? Did John say this happened? Because, and other people were there? I don't recall. I mean, it just doesn't sound, you know, familiar.
And this is an incident where you showed up, you weren't supposed to show up, and things got heated.
At his house?
Yeah.
That just doesn't sound familiar. That doesn't sound familiar.
I mean, would you remember something like that in your life?
Well, I would think, but...
Some sort of drama involving, you know, the other woman type of thing?
Did you ever fight with her?
You mean like we fought?
Yeah. Did you ever duke it out with her?
No, I don't think so. I mean...
You'd remember that, right? That would be pretty...
Yeah, I would think so.
Pretty specific.
Yeah, like I said, I mean,
dramatic.
obviously, they're saying, okay, I fought with her, so I must have killed her. I mean, come on. I mean, I don't even know who these people are. I can't even say I met any of these people. I mean, it's insane. If it happened, I honestly don't remember.
It's a big leap from the little disagreement to murder, but nothing is being ruled out now. They're too far into the interrogation to back down.
I'm looking at the notes, and these people are kind of pointing the finger at you.
Well...
And...
I mean, that's not ringing a bell to me, so I don't know what to tell you. I mean, that just sounds crazy to me.
Yeah, so you, offhand, you don't recall ever going into her house and having words and physically, you know...
No.
Attacking her attacking you?
No.
Nothing like that?
No, I mean, that's... No.
Nothing?
No. No. Not at all.
Okay. It occurred in '86, right? Detectives processed the scene, things of that nature. They did fingerprints and all that stuff. You know, you know the standard stuff. I mean, you've been doing this longer than I have.
Well, I don't know about that. I got 26 years on, going on 26.
19, so. But you know, as they processed everything, they did the best they could at that time, and they looked at a lot of people and different things in this case. And you're right.
I mean, if you guys are claiming that I'm a suspect, then you know I got a problem with that.
Okay.
Okay. If you're doing this as an interrogation, you're saying, "Hey, I'm a suspect." Well, now I got a problem with now you're accusing me of this. Is that what you're saying?
We're trying to figure out what happened, Stephanie.
Well, I'm just saying. Do I need to get a lawyer if you're accusing me of this? You know.
You don't have to. I mean, you're
just,
here of your own free will. I mean,
no. I know, but
I mean, you're not under arrest. You can walk out.
You can leave whenever you like.
Well, but, I'm trying to give you some background of how I knew him, and now you're telling me that somebody's saying that we had this big old fight, and I don't even know what you're talking about. And I don't want to get in trouble for something that I didn't even do, or you're saying I did something.
Okay.
Yeah, we understand.
The panic has set in, and Stephanie can now see that she is their prime suspect. And maybe she's here for more than some background information on John.
I mean, how would you guys like it if the tables were turned on you?
I understand. No.
No, that's what we're telling you. I mean, you're free to go whenever you want. If this makes you uncomfortable and you want to...
now you're starting to make me uncomfortable.
Detectives did what they could at that time on the crime scene. Okay, and the burglary thing you're talking about, that is an angle that they looked at. Now we're looking at everything else on the case. Because nobody was ever arrested on the case.
I don't know that or not.
Okay. Now, what we'd like to do is, if we asked you for a DNA swab, would you be willing to give us one?
Maybe. Because now
because
I'm thinking I probably need to talk to a lawyer.
Okay.
Because I know how this stuff works, okay? Don't get me wrong, you're right, I have been doing this a long time.
Yeah.
And I wish I had been recording this because now it sounds like, there's, you're selling these people saying I'm fighting with her, and now it sounds like you're trying to, and now it almost sounds like you're trying to pin something on me.
No,
now I got that sense.
Our job is to identify and eliminate suspects.
I can't believe this.
So, if we ask you to the point to give us a DNA sample, would you be willing to do that?
Maybe.
Right now, from looking at the evidence, it's possible we may have some DNA at the location.
That's great.
And we're going to do what we can to try to put this thing together. And your name's in the book. These people are pointing at you for whatever reason.
I don't know why. That's just crazy. I mean, that's absolutely crazy.
And it would be irresponsible on our part not to look at it.
I know. You guys have to do your job,
And-
and I guess I'm going to have to contact somebody, because I know how this stuff works. I just can't believe it.
Things are really heating up now, with DNA left at the crime scene being brought into the case. Stephanie is breaking away slowly from cool, calm, and collected into a full panic.
We understand that. I mean, if we were in your position, I mean, we would feel the same way.
I just can't even believe it. I mean, I'm shocked. I'm really shocked that somebody would be saying that I did this. I mean, we had a fight, and so I went and killed her. I mean, come on.
Well,
That's...
okay.
All right.
Well, thanks for giving me the courtesy. I wish I recorded it.
Thanks for your time.
Yeah, thank you.
All right, Stephanie, take care.
Although these detectives make it out that they're giving her a heads up, what happens next is shocking not to the detectives who have known all along, but to Stephanie. Listen closely as they stop her in the hallway to make the arrest.
This is absolutely crazy.
Have a seat, Stephanie.
This is insane.
Okay. Give me 1 second. Okay. Stephanie, you know you have the right to remain silent. Do you understand?
Yes,
Anything you say may be used against you in court. Do you understand?
yes,
You have the right to the presence of an attorney before and during any questioning. Do you understand?
yes.
If you cannot afford an attorney, one will be appointed for you free of charge before any questioning if you want. Do you understand?
Yes.
You want to talk to us right now?
No.
All right.
Okay.
This
then.
is crazy.
Okay.
This is absolutely... I'm like in shock. I'm totally in shock.
23 years later, justice was served and the coldest case of the century finally solved. The trial began in 2012, 3 years after the arrest. In March of that year, after several days of back and forth, 52-year-old Stephanie Lazarus was convicted of first-degree murder and sentenced to 27 years to life in prison. With credits to time already served, she'll be up for parole at the end of 2034, when she's 74 years old.